Yeah, good evening and welcome to the meeting. Firstly, can I pass on to the Chief Executive? We've got an announcement from Chief Executive.
Good evening, members. I just want to advise members of the Council of the resignation of Councillor Murgatroyd, which was received on Monday, the 15th of March. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Meeting of this is the final meeting of the Council for the current municipal year, and it's also my last meeting too. So it's really been an honour to chair the full Council meeting, especially for 2 terms. And I really enjoyed it, and I would like to thank you all for contributing and supporting me in this time. And also I would like to thank the officers who worked really hard behind the scenes. There's a lot of work, as we had a lot of challenges, especially throughout the pandemic, where we had to use special different ways of working. And I would just like to say a big thank you to you guys. Could I therefore please invite any members who would wish to tribute to retiring members to do so? Please indicate in the chat bar if you wish to speak. Councillor Lawson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm rising to speak on the occasion of Christine Iredale's retirement, Councillor Iredale's retirement. Before I do, though, can I personally thank you for the work that you've done as Mayor over the last 2 years, and it cannot have been easy to have got used to a brand new way of working over the past year. And I want to thank you for all your efforts that you've put into chairing this this particular meeting as well. So thank you very much, Mayor. I did organise a few words for Christine. She was already on council when I joined 11 years ago, and she'd already made her mark on council at that time by chairing the licensing committee, and has since been a critical friend of taxi services as both a user and an advocate for those who use the server ever since. I don't know if you remember this, Christine, but there was one occasion when, as a new councillor, I had to sub on the licensing panel with you. After you were chair, this was though. It was the issue of wraparound advertising for taxis that came up. Watching your no-nonsense approach in explaining some of the less enticing choices that might be available to taxi firms was an instructive lesson to a new councillor that sometimes less is more. Having served since 2003, Christine was a natural choice when it came to our group selection to be mayor. However, there was a hiccup that prevented her from fulfilling the role until she regained her seat in 2013, which she did handsomely. And what she went on to become mayor in 2017 with her consort Robert, and was a great ambassador for Kirklees, meeting hundreds of people from all walks of life and making each one feel as though they were talking to a real life person and not to a corporate rep. She laid out her stall at her mayor making and gave a hallmark short speech, which was refreshing on an occasion notorious for its numbums. Christine stamped her personality on the role and had many successes, as well as chairing council and working for her own charities, the Dementia UK and the Alzheimer's Society. It was when Christine left Planet Mayor, and I, as GBM at the time, met with her to discuss her return to group, that I remember being deeply impressed. She said to me, in the Merry England, and in between passers-by saying hello to her, "Right, John, I want my panels back and I want to get stuck in. I've missed it." And that tells you all you need to know. Christine, you didn't get your head turned by being mayor. You're a worker, a doer, with an instinct to care and driven to stick up for people. As leader, I've often sought Christine's feelings about issues, and she's never failed to give me an honest, forthright opinion. I fear she may continue to do so after her retirement, and mine too, come to that. So it's a bittersweet day. Group loses a stalwart in council, but wishes her and Robert and the family a long and happy retirement. The group will miss you. I'll miss you very much. I don't know who's going to remember everyone's birthday in group. Perhaps we could keep you on as a co-optee as with the special responsibility. But just because you're retiring, don't think you can drop me from your little black book of coffee dates. I'm looking forward to meeting up with you for coffee in town as soon as situation is well, as soon as the situation allows it. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you for that. Can we have Councillor Burke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you as well for all that you've done over the last 2 years in your term of office. I'd like, if I may, be able to say a few words about Councillor Stanfield, Iredale. Get the Christines mixed up. Christine Iredale has got to be one of the most approachable people I know. Always happy, warm, and friendly. This unique quality has served her well whilst representing her ward. Doing her bit on behalf of the party as well, making friends and doing a lot between all of the political groups and working with everybody and working for all the residents of the Gorka ward. Standing up for people, always with our strong liberal values and beliefs. We all want to say thank you for your many years of service. Everyone agrees that you possess a rare combination of vision, fairness and understanding. Many of us have many personal additional reasons for our gratitude. Personally, I'd like to thank you for all the help, support and advice you've provided to me and that you've always given me without fail. I've enjoyed working with you, and one of the highlights in particular would have to be, notwithstanding the by-election victory, but also your mayoral year, a year like no other. In one that you, I think, enjoyed most, helping and supporting your charity, Alzheimer's, and also making many friends around the district and going to many events and doing the best that you could along the way. I know you will continue to help, support and be involved in many groups and organisations because that's who you are and the kind of person that you are. So I'd like to say congratulations on a job well done and a retirement well deserved. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you for that. Can we have Councillor David Hall, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To say a few words, please, first about Councillor Granger Mead, who is retiring this time after a rare 5-year term. Elected in 2016, but no stranger to campaigning because previously to that she had run a charity and also been a campaigner for the BBG High School up in Birkenshaw. And a stalwart member of her community who soon became embedded into the Livingston Gummersall team, and we've had a great deal of fun along the way. Since then, she's served with distinction on the planning committee, on the licensing committee, and we will miss her very much for her companionship and for everything that she's done on behalf of our local residents. Thank you, Michelle, and we wish you the very best for your what could be called retirement, but I'm pretty sure you'll be finding other things to do in the future. Could I also say a few words about Councillor Iredale? Sad to see that you're leaving, Christine, because we've had a lot of fun over the years. I will miss those old days in the Merry England with other people that are no longer at the council at the moment. And I know you had a super mayoral year, so I do wish you the very best in your retirement. Just to say, Mr. Mayor, I know there are others also retiring. I think Councillor Walker, Councillor Murgatroyd, Councillor Asif. I hope I haven't missed anyone. My gravest apologies if I have, but to thank them as well, because every single one of these 5 people have made a great impact in this council and done the best for their communities and should be thanked. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. Can we have Councillor Andrew Marchington, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just thanks to you for the work you've put in over the last 2 years as Mayor. That's appreciated. Yeah, I just want to say just a few kind words about Christine. I've known Christine as a colleague and a friend for many, many years. She was elected to the council the year before I was, and then we were all elected together in the all-out elections in 2004. Christine topped the poll. And just to compliment the comments made by colleagues on the council, that she was really in touch with the needs of the community she represented. She had a wonderful way of talking to people. She's really respected in all our villages. And some of the things that people didn't see across the council is she was great for the surgeries that we held. She made sure that we had surgeries in all the parts of the ward, you know, in Cowlersley, Milnes Bridge. She set up surgeries in at Royds Hall and places where we've not had surgeries before. And it was always great to see her. She was really warmly welcomed at the drop by on Sycamore Avenue to have a cup of coffee. So that's another place John could come and have a cup of coffee when it's safe to do so, if not in Huddersfield. And again, Kyle's spoken kind words about Christine, but she did come up to Salon Dine up with us at the shopping centre. And she's been really involved with a lot of activities in the ward, and in events like Coca Lily Day, when she's come along to switch the Christmas lights on occasions, and in both Milnes Bridge and in Goka. So Christine, we sort of really wish you well as you retire from the council, but we know you won't be retiring from representing and championing the people, all the people in the Goka ward who hold you dear, and you hold them dear as well. Thanks, Christine. Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Can I just, just again, I know we mentioned the others be saying, but just like to say, all the best to Richard Murgatroyd as he and Mel move up to York. I've known Richard for a long number of years. Taught Fran at Manor Road, taught her a bit of maths there, and he's been really great to work with. His heart was in the community. So I wish him all the best as he moves on. And again, Rob Walker, I've known Rob for more years than I care to remember as well. And it was great working with him as one of the Colne Valley councillors, and over the years, and had some really good conversations with him about politics and the way we do things over them. So all the best to both of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Pando.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd just like to say thanks for the hard work Councillor Michelle Granger-Mead has put in. 5 years is a long time by any means, because every day, every week, every year that anybody dedicates to public life is really a massive appreciation. And I think we need to just understand that when people come into public life, they have to give a lot of things up. And I know that it's not easy being elected mayor, especially last year. It's been very difficult for a lot of people. And I thank Michelle for all the hard work she's put in over the last 5 years, and I wish her and her family all the best, and best wishes for whatever she does in the future. In terms of Christine, I may go back some time, not more than other people have spoken, but Christine is one of them people that you just want to get hold of and hug, and because she's such a lovely person. She's just naturally a people person, and it was quite sad actually that she was deputy mayor, she lost the seat, but I think fate came in its own when she came back, and it was really great that she became the mayor, and quite rightly deserved as well. And when she was the mayor, she came into her own, because I was the deputy leader then. And she gave me a lot of good support, and she was always there when I was at events with her. And one event that comes out to me is on the back of the Manchester Arena bombing. Suddenly we heard the news flash that took place nationally, internationally, and very quickly our officers were under a lot of pressure to actually do something in Kirklees, and it was the right thing to do. And I remember Christine and Bob and myself, we were suddenly summoned to go and represent Kirklees on the steps of Dewsbury Town Hall, and that's where the role of the mayor was so important. And it was better to actually represent Kirklees at that moment in time. Christine did a really good job bringing the community together, and that's where I think Christine came from. And I'm sure that that was very well welcomed, and I'm sure there were many people where Christine represented this council, not just as a councillor, but as a first citizen, and that was really a proud moment for me. I wish Christine and Bob all the best. Christine's been around a long time, and so she's going to still be around. But I've made a good friend in Christine. She's a great person. In terms of my own members, who basically Richard Murgatroyd, he came on the council, and again Richard came in because he has got some very clear principles, very strong values, and it's because of his dedication and commitment that I think that we got the climate emergency working group up and running very, very quickly. I think Bristol were one of the first ones to do it, and then very soon after, if not the second authority to get involved, was Kirklees. And this is because Richard came and knocked on my door, and David Sheard, who was then the leader, and wanted to get this motion through the cabinet and the full council, and we succeeded. We got a joint agreement. We got a joint commission which was led by Richard. And although Richard's only been here a short time, I think the impact he's made around climate emergency will be a legacy we can be proud of. That is something that will actually live on for a long time. Again, it's all the hard work he put in them early days, and I'd like to thank Richard for all the dedication and the hard work. And you know, he was challenging, but he was challenging for the right reasons, and I think it's good that challenge does need to take place in a democracy. So you know, we get the best out of people, best out of democratically elected representatives. And I wish him and Mel all the best. I know that he's going to York to set up some kind of a tourist business to actually, you know, take a different approach to life. Now, I said to him that, you know, if I do ever need somebody to take me on a tour down York, I'll look him up, and hopefully he'll give me a good deal based on his socialist values. Rob Walker, again, another giant personality. Rob was actually one of my cabinet members, and it was unfortunate what happened, but that's by and by. Again, Rob and his wife Selma have been excellent representatives, trying to do their best. Rob is a well-known figure. Before even he came to politics, he was the vice principal of New College, and many new councillors remember Rob as their lecturer in New College, and it's really great when Rob sees some of his students who have now come forward as elected members and taking their rightful place in representing people. Rob's always been very committed, very hardworking, very supportive, and even up to now, you know, a few days before this council meeting, he's continuously engaging with me, letting me know what's happening, things that we need to do. And I hope that Rob can keep that conversation with me, because it's people like Rob that actually we need more of in all aspects of public life, not just formally as a councillor. So I wish Rob all the best. I'm sure he'll keep busy, and we'll stay in touch. And finally, Mr. Mayor, Gulfam, Council Gulfam Asif, I've known Gulfam for many years, and Gulfam, like he says it, he wears his heart on his sleeve, and I'm sure he'll agree with that. And it takes a long time to get to know Gulfam. He's a very complex person. He's a very genuine person as well. And again, he says it how it is. People might not understand him, but once you actually spend time with Gulfam, sit down with him, and actually understand what his value base is, where he's coming from, you do actually get to know him in a different way. And I think that's what makes this council unique, despite us having different political parties. You know, we are individuals, we are human beings, we have our own experiences, and Gulfam has got a way about him that actually makes me look at things in a completely different way. I could talk to most of the councillors on this council, and I'll get a view, but when I then approach Gulfam, and when I least expect something, he'll actually give me that spark of thought that will make me think, actually, I never thought of that. And I've never said this to him, but I'll actually say it now, that he has actually put some sparks in my head in terms of making the right decision, and his advice was very welcome. Again, I wish Gulfam all the best. We don't live far from each other, so Gulfam will hopefully stay in touch. So once again, Mr. Mayor, thanks very much for all the councillors who have spent their time on this council, and thank you to you for stepping up when we came into the pandemic, because you were also under a lot of pressure, having to take the mantle of the mayoralty for an extra year. So all the best to you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Pando. I've just been informed that former Mayor David Wright has passed away, and my condolences goes to the family. I would just like to pass on to Councillor Sokol. Councillor Sokol?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say a few words about Councillor David Wright, former Councillor David Wright. Mr. Mayor, I work with David both on Kirklees Council and Huddersfield Magistrate Court bench from 1989 to 1999 when he retired as a Kirklees councillor. David was well-respected councillor by his fellow councillor and officer during his term from 1980 to 1999. He was highly committed and dedicated to his role as a councillor to the council and his ward resident. David served on many council committees, but one of his most memorable role was on Huddersfield Planning Committee, where I was a member at that time on the Planning Committee. David played a major role in making decisions on big applications such as Huddersfield Stadium, we have a well-known stadium, Kingsgate Shopping Centre, and Big Sainsbury at Shorehead Roundabout. David was elected mayor of Kirklees in 1992 to 1993 and was awarded OBE by the Queen in recognition of his service to the community and service in the cause of the mental health. Last time I met David at Asda supermarket coffee shop where we had a cup of coffee together. We talked. It was just before the last year lockdown, 2020. Mr. Mayor, David will be missed by all of us and his friend. What a lovely man he was. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. Can we have Councillor Opal, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I firstly just pass my best wishes on to Councillor Granger Mead and Councillor Idale for everything that they've done. I've not got to know them as well as I would have liked, but I recently was at a meeting with Councillor Granger Mead for International Women's Day, and it was brilliant to be there with her, speaking to younger women. And also Councillor Iredale, I remember you visiting the Sikh temple, and it was brilliant to see you there engaging with the community. So thank you for everything that you've both done. Can I also pass on my best wishes to Councillor Asif for everything he's done, and I really do wish you the best in the coming years. I just wanted to also mention Councillor Walker. It's been great getting to know Councillor Walker. I sat on the Economies and Neighbourhood Scrutiny panel with him when he was chair, and he's just been really supportive to me as a new member, and I couldn't have asked for more support. And he was one of the people that I always went to for advice and that I would ring up, and I'm going to miss that really. So hopefully he doesn't mind me keeping in touch with him. Councillor Murgatroyd, again, I was able to work with him on the Climate Emergency Working Group. Very passionate about his work on climate change. He's really brought some change and focus to the council around climate change as well. So I thank him again for everything he's done, and I wish him and Mel all the best. And I did just want to say something about David Wright. He's a member of our Labour branch in Ashbrow. Him and his wife Phyllis were active members in the Ashbrow ward branch. They'd be there constantly, always raising issues with us. We always were able to get lots of advice from him. And when I was at school and we went and visited the town hall, and the person that we met at the time was David. He was the mayor at the time, and he was just so great, and he had such an impact on me as a child, and he probably didn't realise the impact that he had on us at that time. So my heart goes out to Phyllis and his adult children, and we will all miss him very, very much. We've really lost a giant in the Labour Party. Thank you. Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for everything you've done over the past 2 years as well. And I wish you the best as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Masood Ahmed, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I start by thanking you, Mr. Mayor, for the excellent mayor that you've been for the last 2 years, and it's been a joy working with you on your charities as well as seconding you when you became a mayor. So thank you for the work that you've done as a mayor. I think you've been a great mayor for Kirklees. I mean, I want to really talk about Councillor Gulfar Massif, my ward colleague, and if it's okay, I'll say a few words about the other councillors that are leaving as well. I've known Councillor Asif for a very long time, probably a lot longer than any of the other councillors. I've more or less grown up with him. I wouldn't say I'm the same age as him. I think I'm a bit older than him, even though he's got less hair on his head than I have. But yeah, I've known him a very long time, and he's been a good ward colleague and really good friend. And in the time that I've known him over the last 5 years as a ward colleague, I've got to know him far better as a person and how he is. And I think I just want to echo some of the stuff that the leader has just mentioned. If you don't know Gulfam basically is, you'd call a spade. Basically, he's outspoken, he's frank, he's direct, he's blunt. He can sometimes be very rude, but I don't think he means it. But he is actually honest, and he speaks his mind. And to be honest with you, that's what I love about him. I genuinely do, and I think that's what makes him a unique councillor and as a person in terms of the ward of Dewsbury South that he has represented for the last 5 years. I've really enjoyed working with him, and I've got my other ward colleague, Nosheen Dad, who's just come back after maternity leave for over a year and a bit now. And I think we are a very good team and have been a really good team. And we've sit and have meetings and we'll have meals together. And we've even set up our own little WhatsApp group and we talk about what's going on, how things are. And, you know, we'll catch up at the weekends and do that. And I would class ourselves as the A team. I don't know if any of you have ever watched the A team. I'm going to let you decide who B.A. Baracus is from the three of us, but I'm definitely Hannibal Smith. So I'll let you guys decide who B.A. Baracus is from the three of us. We've been involved with a lot of projects, honestly, over the last 5 years, and I don't know where to start, but I know the chief exec will know one, and also the leader will know, as well as other councillors. We've been involved with on an annual event, which is Come On You All, and I know the leader and the chief exec have been on I've attended one of those two events, and we've had some really good times, and there have been memorable moments that we've had. But I think the projects that will resume and highlight the last 5 years will be that we've now got a new walking track getting installed in Thornley Lees on Lees Own Park, similar to the one that we've got in Savilletown playing fields, which I know is the second most well-used playing fields within the whole of Kirklees, and offices. We get hundreds of people, and day and night it's been well used. And I think it just echoes one of the projects that he's been involved with. The digital hubs is another baby that he's been involved with, and I think the other one for me really sticks out is mental health, loneliness, and isolation that we've been working on in our community. And I think the pandemic has really brought us all together, and I think us as ward councillors in the Dewsbury South has really made us realise, you know, how short life is and what we need to be doing for those communities and those people that needed us. And I think Gulfam and my other ward colleague coming together and supporting the distribution of food parcels, hot meals, and even helping out with homelessness has been great. I mean, for me, Gulfam is Gulfam. I mean, I'm genuinely going to miss him, and I'm not just saying this. I genuinely will miss him in the chamber. I know he does have a humour. He does smile. So if people think he doesn't have a humour and doesn't smile, he genuinely does. And his directness in the chamber will definitely be missed. And for me, like I said, he's not just being a colleague. He has genuinely been a very good and a dear friend who I will miss immensely. I don't want to say too much. Like I said, I could be here all night talking about him, and I don't want to be doing that. We've got an agenda to look at. I just want to say a few words about Christine Airedale. I mean, when I became a councillor many years ago, I remember joining the council and then being a chair of licensing. And I remember Christine Airedale taking me under her wings as well, guiding me and supporting me as a novice councillor. So I really want to say personally to Christine, thank you. And she did actually even take me to Merry England, and trust me, it's an experience that you don't want to forget for those that have been, but it was something I won't forget. So I just want to say thank you, Christine, for the lovely, memorable moments, and please do keep in touch. Rob Walker, what can I say? I knew Rob's wife, Thelma, when she was a head teacher in Overthorpe Academy in my ward, and I got to know Rob on the Kirklees and Calderdale directorship whilst we're both on, and now that he's involved with a cricket club in his ward that I've got some affiliation with, we will no doubt be keeping in touch. So I've had a really good time working with Rob, and I hope we continue to do that. In terms of Richard, got to know him very briefly on the West Yorkshire Pension Fund. So I really want to just wish him all the best and say thank you. Didn't get a chance to know him as well, but you know, I wish him the best. And also to the Councillor Mead, who I've briefly spoken to, and I know she's got some affiliation with the Armed Forces, and me being the Armed Forces champion and Covenant lead, I hope she does spare a bit of time to become a volunteer with us if she can. But I would just like to say thank you to all of them, and I do wish them all the best in terms of what they are doing in the future. And thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Masood. That was a long tribute. Thank you. Can we have a bit shorter tributes, please? Because we've got the other things to do as well. So thank you. Next is
apologies.
Councillor Medha.
Thank you, Mayor. So first of all, I'd like to start off by paying condolences and my respect to the family of David Wright and Phyllis and his children. He was one of the first when I moved into Huddersfield. He was the first who took me under his wings. And when somebody said, was it Harpreet said he was a giant? He really was. When you're just 5 foot in the morning, you know, he was a giant in reality for me. So I shall miss him, the ward shall miss him, and he was a true socialist and activist right to the end. I want to go and say a couple of words for each of my colleagues who are stepping down. Christine, you're a dear friend. You always made time for everybody. I didn't know Councillor Granger Mead, but wish you all the best. Gulfam will always remain my friend, a long-standing friend, and he's a right softie. So very, very genuine and very, very caring. Councillor Walker, Rob, you brought me music, and I shall be forever grateful for your passion that brought me to that stage. Richard, you are amazing. You're leaving behind a great legacy in relation to where we will be in terms of environment and greener Kirklees. It's all up to you, May. And I want to say the final thanks to our Mayor Mumtaz Hussain, who's been amazing. He's been gracious, he's been courageous, been befitting the office of Mayor. I love the way he has conducted himself. I have, found so many layers to his personality, and I like the charities, especially what he brought out in terms of the armed forces, because often it's forgotten that, you know, Black people, Black, Asian, the rest of the empire joined in the 2 world wars and brought us peace. So thank you for being our mayor for the district for the past 2 years. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather, for the really nice and sweet tribute to myself. Right, can we have Councillor Mark Thompson, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to pay my a tribute and my thanks to Michelle Granger-Mead. Unfortunately for many, it was Michelle that introduced me to becoming a councillor just over 3 years ago, after many months sat in a cafe deliberating over what was good and righteous and what wasn't in the local area, and constantly moaning about things. I think she'd had enough and just said, well, if you feel that way, then you really should become a councillor, which I did. So I'd like to thank Michelle for the push. And the other thing was, in my first year, I was on the planning committee, which Michelle was on. She told me it was a great post to introduce yourself in a council, and I think really what she wanted to do was just have somebody to talk to for 5 hours on the bus, really, rather than pointing me in the right direction. But Michelle, I've got a couple of points that indicate what Michelle really is as a person, and the main one is on my 60th birthday many years ago. My wife was ill in bed for a couple of months, and I was looking after the kids fairly badly and trying to run a business and be a councillor. And Michelle decided to take it upon herself to have a surprise party for me at her cafe, unbeknown to me and any of the family. And that sort of sums up what Michelle's like. She likes to do things well, covertly. She doesn't like the praise, adoration. She just likes to be in the background doing the good stuff. And that pretty much, to me, sums up what Michelle is really like. And I'd like to thank her for that and wish her all the best in the future. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Can we have Councillor Leslie Warner, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, I want to pay a really heartfelt tribute to Rob, Councillor Walker, rather. He's just been, there for me since the beginning as a newbie. Doesn't matter what problem he's advised me. He's one of the kindest, most patient people I know. He's the only person I know who no one's got a bad word to say about him. He has he's as passionate about the world and wanting a just world, and his passion for the environment just shines through all the time, whether it's working on, the Greenway or all the other, with the National Trust, with Marsden. And he lives the role 7 days a week. Really hard act to follow. I'm going to miss him like crazy. And also the push we've done in the ward on mental health, which I think is a great legacy to him. So, I'm really going to miss you, Rob, and you and Thelma. It's your fault that I'm here, by the way. And I also just want to say big thanks to Richard for pushing the environment emergency, which obviously we need to keep pushing. And also thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your 2-year stint. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we have Councillor Peter McBride, please? Councillor McBride? Are you there, Councillor McBride? Can you unmute? Move on. Should move on. Yeah. Right. Can we have Councillor Bill Armour, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, my thanks to you for the last couple of years, and my best wishes for all retiring colleagues. I would like to talk about David Wright, and I will be talking more in personal terms than political ones. Although David and I did meet through politics, as we were both tramping round Bradley Estate delivering leaflets for different parties, I hasten to add. And he was a genuine giant. He towered above me, but he was also a very big man internally as well, if I can make that clear. A perfect gentleman. Very strong political views, but also very ready to listen to other people. He didn't take things personally, and he actually persuaded me to join him on the board of trustees of a local almshouses charity about 9 years ago. And for the past 5 years, David has been chairman and I was his vice chairman. Worked very, very closely together. And so it's a bit of a hackneyed phrase, but knowing David, working with David, did enrich my life. I'm very sorry to see him go. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can we have Peter McBride, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do apologise, I had technical problems. I want to pay a range of tributes. Many of them have already been paid to retiring councillors, all of whom I have huge respect for. I have particular feeling for so many. Rob, I was talking to today, and we will continue our friendship. Christine, I've been a fellow councillor for at least 20 years together. Go Farm's been a good mate, and I've worked well with all of the councillors who are currently retiring. I do thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the work you've done. I think you will turn out to be always our longest serving mayor, having done 2 years. I don't think anybody is ever going to repeat that, but you've done a tremendous job in that over that period, and it's been very exacting and very demanding. But my main reason for speaking really was to talk about former Councillor Wright, David Wright. He was, as the last speaker said, a giant of a man, physically and as a personality. He was quiet, gentle, effective. As a former councillor, whether he was a councillor or not, he worked in the community tirelessly. And as another councillor said earlier, seeing him outside Asda regularly with the tin, asking for money for mental health, and he did it well after being a councillor for at least 20 years after that. He got an MBE for his work for mental health, deservedly so. He was a tremendous character. So all of you have served local government in the way you have. Tremendous respect and a big, big thank you.
Thank you for that. Can we have Councillor Gulfar Massif, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to all the other speakers for their kind words. I want to officially thank the residents of Dewsbury South for their trust in me for the last 5 years, and in particular my two fellow ward councillors, Masood and Nosheen. It's been hard being a councillor, but working alongside with you has made it that much easy. One which has been full of laughter, hard work, pushing each other along with an amazing memories, which I will cherish forever. Everything we've achieved is a credit to all three of us working as one. It's been truly a pleasure working with you, and the only thing that I'm going to miss is that. So thank you for everything. My 9 years is nothing compared to Donald and Mohan, both of you who've been on the council since 1874. Now that's an achievement in itself. I've been asked many times how I ended up as a councillor. The answer is, I've no bloody idea. I'm still trying to figure this out on my way out. A dear friend once said, play the long game. The answer is, my answer was, honesty is a bitter pill to swallow, and not just speaking, but listening is even harder. I'm not going to compromise in what I believe, and will continue to speak up and never sit on the fence. That's exactly what I've done over the years. I've always spoken my mind, holding others to account, and I guess diplomacy was never my strong point. One thing which is clear is that I've done things my way, so no regrets. I can't say it's been easy being a councillor with so many interesting personalities we interact with, but I love when the council chamber turns into a circus act, which I'm honoured to have been part of. I've been called many things in the chamber, and one of the things that really stick to my mind is the fellow councillor who called me the rudest person in the chamber after the budget meeting. He said this while shaking my hand. Now this takes balls. And I respect that, Councillor Thompson. At least you were honest. And yes, one would describe the situation of being rude that day, but that's politics, nothing personal. The reality is, whatever the political colours we hold and represent, the only difference between all of us is the space between you and the person you sit next to. The rest is just a political ritual dance that we all take part in. So if I did offend any of you, as I'm sure I did at some point, then let me take this opportunity to say, I'm sorry, and please forgive me as I've done the same. As for Shabir, I know I'm going to be apologising to you for the next couple of weeks. Jackie, thank you for your support and advice and the work that you've done over the years and made continue. I often said that you're like the headmistress of the council, keeping everyone in check. So keep cracking the whip. Some might just enjoy that. So big thank you to you and all of the officers in the council. And finally, I say this to all of you, whoever controls the council after May, be bold and creative, think outside the box and work with each other. So the very best of luck to you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Asif. Can we have Councillor Martin Bott, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you don't mind, I'll just stay on audio. We're having problems with internet connections. Oops. Looks like it's happening again. Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, we can hear you okay, Councillor Martin.
Thanks. The screen just went blank, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, I'd like to echo sentiments. Thank you for your service. It's never easy being the mayor, but having to continue way past what you would have thought was the end date. Thanks to you and your good lady for your service. I'd like to also join in the condolences to the family of David Wright. David was someone that I had the pleasure to meet on many occasions, and as has been said, his personality was that he was pleasant, he was convivial, and you could always talk to him, no matter what your politics or anything were. You could have a pleasant chat, and he attended many civic occasions, and I was grateful for his company. His service on planning has been spoken about, and I remember one of the tales that I was told that David was one of the people who disagreed with the fact when Gal Farm wanted to go up Bradley Road, and we lost them to Batley, and no matter how much pressure was put in, he wouldn't change that. He thought that was how that should be. David was also, I think, one of two people in Kirklees who've been honoured with membership of the Showman's Guild of Great Britain, the Fairground Association, the other being the late George Spate. He was well respected for his support for the travelling community, for the showman and everything, and that is a testament to that. I will pay general tribute to everybody retiring, but specifically, I'd like to offer my thanks and best wishes to Gulfam. Gulfam, as someone said, you could always have a chat with him, as he just said himself. That politics and personalities should be kept separate. Gulfam was first elected to Kirklees in 2000, where he had a 47% share of the vote there, beating the veteran Labour councillor Timmy Gowder. He was elected as a Conservative, so you can see that obviously for many years Gulfam has been a person of taste and understanding. It's a shame that some of that waned. I mean, he served a short term because, as I'm sure you remember, Gulfam, I can see you laughing there. In 2004, the electorate saw sense when they elected 3 Conservatives on a Conservative ticket in the all-out elections, and I think you came 7th out of 11th there, Gulfam. But yeah, a resilient character that you are. You came back in 2016, and we're only just getting rid of you now. As you said, if you've said anything to anybody, it wasn't meant with offence. You stand up and shout, and that was the ribaldry. I am looking forward, though, Gulfam, to you honouring one promise I think that you made a while ago. You said before you leave, you were going to open Pandora's box and tell everybody all the problems within the Labour group. So this is your last meeting today, and I'm sure you wouldn't want to go without that promise unfilled. So please, if the Mayor will allow you, please tell us all the inner secrets and the Pandora's box of the Labour group. But Mr. Mayor, to all those who are leaving us, this time. To all those colleagues, I would like to say thank you for their service. I think it's important that the council recognises that from whatever political standpoint anybody is serving, I'm sure that everybody comes here with the intention of serving their community and serving the wider body of Kirklees with a genuine need and genuine wish to make a difference and to contribute. And I'm sure all of those who we're saying goodbye to today have done that in their own way. And many of them will leave a mark on this council for which we should be thankful. It's often said in Parliament, there's a compliment to someone that they are a parliamentarian, that if they're down in Westminster and they're serving the people. It's a shame that there isn't an equivalent phrase, because if you say to someone, yes, they were a councillor, it is not always seen as a compliment it should be. But to all those who are stepping down, thank you very much for your service to Kirklees. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Viv Kendrick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems to be my week for agreeing with Councillor Martin Bolt. I echo his sentiments about the hard work that all councillors have put in and their commitment to local communities. In the interest of a bit of speed, my very best wishes to all retiring councillors. I have worked at different amounts with all of you, I think. I particularly want to say my great thanks to Rob Walker. It was excellent to work alongside Rob as a cabinet colleague, although he did have a tidier desk than I did. I greatly value his knowledge, skills and experience, and I'd like to give my very best wishes to Rob and to Thelma. And my last point, Mr. Mayor, is to congratulate you on carrying out your role as Mayor. Quite a challenge changing from actual meetings, which can be a bit of a bear pit at times, to the intricacies of a virtual meeting. We've all had to learn, nobody more than you, learning how quickly to deal with this. I know you and your wife have worked so hard as Mayor and consort, and despite challenging schedules, I know you've enjoyed it, as have the people who you visited and met. And we also have to acknowledge our deputy mayor has done a 2-year stint and is into year 3 as the coming mayor, so he's got a challenge as well. I think you should be proud of what you've achieved, Mr. Mayor, as we are proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Yusra Hussain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just firstly want to start off by paying my respects to David's family. I didn't know David personally myself, but respect and condolences to them. I also want to say Councillor Granger Mead and Councillor Airedale. I don't know them personally again, but I've seen the contributions they've made in full council, and I wish them best as well. I want to personally thank you, Councillor Richard. He was on the Neighbourhood Scrutiny Committee with myself and Harpreet, a very kind person, and as you can imagine, it's very daunting when you first start a new role, but he was very supportive and he looked out for me and guided me throughout the meetings when I found myself a bit lost. So I really appreciate that. And I want to thank him for generally looking after me overall. I'm wishing him all the best and his new endeavour that he's taken on, and all the best for the future for him. For Councillor Gulfam, echoing some of Councillor Masood's comments and wishing him all the best for the future as well. Councillor Rob, again, you've made some great contributions. I wish you and Thelma, who I know through campaigning, wishing you both the best as well. Mr. Mayor, I want to especially congratulate you and thank you and the Mayoress for all your hard work over the last 2 years. Mr. Mayor, the way you've chaired the virtual meetings, which at times I have to admit, you've kept your cool, but maybe I may not have if I was in your position. There were some challenging times at the meetings, but you took it all in your stride and coped really well. And the fantastic work you've done with the charities out in the community and the excellent work for the Kirklees overall. It's been a challenging role given the pandemic, but you've rose to the occasion. And I thank you so much for you and the Mayoress for your contributions. Thank you.
Councillor Fark Butt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, condolences to the family and friends of David Wright. I didn't actually know David myself, but it sounds like a really good guy, and my condolences to the family. Mine's a very quick one, just to say for all the councillors, colleagues that are leaving this time round, my very best wishes for all your future endeavours and for everything that you want to do in life. I hope you get the time to be able to do that. But especially, I wanted to just say a few words about Councillor Gulfam Asif. Councillor Asif was one of the first people that I spoke to when I was selected and was running for my seat. His words of advice and encouragement and the do's and don'ts, I remembered and I followed. And then when I was a new councillor after being elected, kind of showing me around and showing me how things are done. Again, do's and don'ts while in office. So all your advice is really appreciated, and your friendship was really appreciated, and everything everybody said, I echo. And also finally, just want to say thank you to you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'm going to end up repeating what everybody said, but it hasn't been easy for all of us in terms of getting used to the technology and not having face-to-face meetings, but chairing meetings online and with the way that you do, the professionalism and the work that you've done with the charities that you identified and raising awareness and of course funds for that. So thank you for everything that you've done as well in what has been some difficult times. And that was all from me. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. Can we have Councillor Donald Firth? Councillor Donald Firth, when you want to speak, if you just want to write in the chat in future. I know you put your hand up, but sometimes we miss you. So if you put your name in the chat, we can get you straight on the system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I've put my name in the chat. It went in at 6:13 p.m. However, I would like to, first of all, thank all the councillors who are retiring at this moment in time. Christine Iredale, Michelle Mead, and of course, Gulfam, a good friend of mine, and I wish him all the best. In fact, I wish everybody all the best. I'm sure they'll be, enjoy the retirement. I'd like also to make it be known that to David's wife and family, all my best condolences to them for the for his family, etc. David, I knew him for close on probably 30 years, believe it or not. And after he retired in the 1990s, I used to meet him at varying dues, council dues. And as I said, David was one of the nicest people, regardless of politics, that you could ever wish to meet. He was a real gentle giant, and he was a very good friend and councillor. And all my condolences go to his wife and family. I think that's just about what sums everything up. I think the retirements to Christine Iredale, Michelle, and as I say, and also to Gulfam. Thank you, and to the Mayor for the good job that you've done this year. And I'm hoping that the new Mayor will do a job equally as good. I'm sure he will. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Can we have Councillor Christine Iredale, please?
Just to say a big thank you to all my colleagues, their kind words. I will really miss you all, but I am still being at the Venetia. Anybody can have a coffee with me, and I'm just a phone call away. But I really have had a fantastic time. It's been a privilege, and thanks for all the memories. Thank you.
Thank you for that, everybody. Please, can I also convey the thanks of Council to those members who will not be seeking re-election at the forthcoming elections. The contents of the agenda for today's meeting has been agreed by the Chief Executive in consultation with myself and group leaders. Council Procedure Rule 5.5 relating to the commencement of the key discussion item by 7 o'clock shall not be applied. Please can I remind members not to speak once when you have invited to do so. Members must use the chat function if they wish to request to speak and not to raise hands. Members may begin to request to speak once we have commenced each agenda item in turn. Please do not use the chat for any other purpose other than requesting to speak, and please do not register to speak on agenda items in advance of that item commencing. The voting of agenda item 5 will be done by exception. Any members wishing to express distanciation from the recommendation should indicate in the chat bar. The voting for agenda item 6 will be done by roll call. Can we move on to item 2, absence? We have not received any absence of councillors. Can I ask business managers to advise if there are any further apologies or absence?
Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Sokol?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I first of all congratulate you for the job, brilliant job you've done for the last 3 years. I think you set up a history on Kirklees Council for 3 years continuous service as a mayor. Thank you very much. And thank all the retiring my colleagues and councillors. Sorry, I forgot about them before. Yeah. There's no further apology, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other apologies? No. Okay, we'll move on to item 3. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on 10 February 2021 be approved as correct record. Is that seconded?
Second.
Thank you. Is that carried? Yeah, okay. Item 4. Does any member wish to declare an interest in any of the agenda items? No, please can I remind members to complete and submit a declaration of interest form. Item 5. The report of members' allowance independent review panel, reference from Corporate Governance and Audit Committee. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you very much for your service as Mayor. As colleagues have said, it's been much appreciated. And good evening, colleagues. I hope that you're all safe and well. Firstly, I want to thank the independent panel for the work that they do in meeting, considering these matters carefully, and making their recommendations to Corporate Governance and Audit Committee and to Council. Their work is really important in doing what they can to ensure that allowances are taken out of the political sphere as much as we can and decided upon fairly. And I do want to emphasise the importance of those allowances remaining outside of the political sphere. On this occasion, we've received a report from the panel that is exceptional, and from my understanding, it's unprecedented. This is the first report we've had from the panel that doesn't have unanimous agreement on the basic allowance. It's also unique in that it has a clear and strong emphasis that we should take our own view on the basis of the many factors at play at the moment and not just their own conclusion. It is important context and important to note that there will be a full root and branch review undertaken by the panel in the summer into allowances. This has been planned for some considerable time now and it is going ahead in the summer. The report in front of us would freeze special allowances until that review. If they do decide on any increases to special allowances in the summer, the independent panel unanimously recommended that they should be backdated to the beginning of the new municipal year. But I do want to remind members once again that when that review is completed, it will have to come back to Corporate Governance and Audit and for full council for us to consider and to agree. On the basic allowance, given that the panel couldn't come to their own unanimous agreement, and on the basis of the many exceptional factors we face, as well as the effect that the delayed report from this municipal year had at a very challenging time, Corporate Governance and Audit came to the unanimous conclusion that we should not accept an increase in the basic allowance for the coming municipal year. So, Mr Mayor, I move the recommendations as outlined in point 6 of the Officer's report, which are as follows. That Council conveys thanks to the Members' Allowances Independent Review Panel for their work and notes the outcomes of the panel as attached at Appendix A of the report. That Council resolved not to apply an increase to the members' basic allowance for 2021-2022 municipal year. That it noted that should any changes subsequently be applied to special responsibility allowances following the review of members' allowances schemes scheduled to take place in summer 2021, the panel had recommended that any such adjustments to payments be backdated if applicable. That it be noted that the outcome of the review of the members' allowances scheme scheduled to take place in the summer of 2021 will be considered by Corporate Governance and Audit Committee for further recommendations are made to Council regarding any proposed changes to the members' special responsibility allowances. Thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you for that. Is that seconded?
Mr Mayor, if I may formally second that, and in doing so echo the comments from Councillor Simpson, but also just re-emphasise that should the panel come forward with any recommended changes to special responsibility allowances later in the year, that will be subject to review by Corporate Governance and Audit and a recommendation brought to this council, and then it will be a decision for this council to determine whether or not they should be backdated, although that is what is being recommended by the independent panel. But I am happy to formally second the recommendations in the report. Thank you.
Thank you for that. The recommendation has been moved and seconded. Are there any comments? David Hall, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just to rise to support the recommendations, it is unusual, as been said, that we get a report from the independent panel, which is actually we don't agree with at this time. It is important, though, that we just underline that we are grateful to them for the amount of work they put in and for the time that they spent on our behalf looking at this particular issue. But I think, you know, we're all agreed at the moment. I think we're all agreed anyway. I'm sure we're all of the same mind that at this particular time, when we've got people who've been on 80% furlough wage, people that are facing unemployment, people are having pay freezes, we really shouldn't even be contemplating a rise in allowances. Well, I don't know whether you could take this a little facetiously or not, but if the panel were recommending that any SRA changes be backdated, does that mean that if the SRA changes include a decrease in the SRA, would that be backdated too?
Councillor Pando.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think the recommendation that Corporate Governance and Audit Committee has come forth with is the right thing to do at this moment in time. But having said that, just to bring an air of realism, what I do not want to do is have a rush to the bottom of the pit in terms of trying to undervalue the role of councillors. I know how hard every single councillor works, and one way to actually make sure that the councillors come forward, we want more younger councillors from all backgrounds to come forward, is to make sure that those councillors who work are able to go part-time to be able to actually provide for their families, because councillors, if you look at it in terms of the number of hours they put in, they are far below the minimum wage in terms of the hourly rate or what they get paid. It's a thankless task, so it's not a rush to the bottom. And we just heard earlier on, and I was congratulations to all the retiring councillors, the amount of hard work they've put in. I don't want to lose that, Mr Mayor, because what it is right here is we want to make sure that we level up on a par with a lot of other local authorities, and also we take the relevant recognition as do with other public bodies, be it government or public sector bodies who do provide remuneration, which doesn't demand the same level of scrutiny, the same level of commitment, the same level of sacrifice, and the same level of abuse as well. Because I know many councils across the piece who actually face a lot of abuse. And I want to make sure that not just councillors in this council, but councils across the country are well recognised. As it is, we've already in a situation where a lot of councils up and down the country I speak to have retired because they're saying, you know, we don't have a pension. And as the world gets more and more difficult living, you know, there's certain basics that we need to actually think about. Also, in terms of the remuneration and what councillors should or should not get paid, or SRAs, we also need to understand that on average, looking at other authorities, we have big awards. I know district councils who have got a lot smaller population, who don't have as much responsibility in terms of children's services, adult services, strategic waste, and strategic highways, who have a better SRA and a better and more generous basic allowance. So I just want to remind members that let's not have a race to the bottom. We should be talking local governmental, and we need to just keep that in mind, because there are a lot of councillors out there across all parties who actually would be able to give a lot more if the remuneration was reflected. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that. Councillor John Lawson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep my comments brief, really brief. I do agree with the recommendations coming from corporate governance and audit, and with the comments that colleagues have made previously. Yes, it would be inappropriate, I think, to take a rise this year. However, we do have to have in the back of our minds why allowances are there and why they rise. I do applaud that they are linked now to officers' rises. That's a good thing, because it stops us doing that kind of freeze upon freeze upon freeze for years, and then having a massive 10% hike, because that just looks wrong on every level from every angle. So having the incremental increase, I think, is absolutely where we should be. Let's not forget, though, why this allowance is here. It's here to open up democracy. It's here so that people, everyone, can afford to be a councillor. So we don't go back to the bad old days of just businessmen, people of independent wealth and family can be councillors. This is really about making democracy available to every level of society. So let's not lose track of that when we talk about what's appropriate this year. I would look forward to a climate, if you like, where yes, officers are receiving a pay increase, and so will members. That will bring it into line, so nobody's better off than anybody else. But yeah, let's just not lose sight of why these allowances are there in the first place. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew Cooper, please.
Well, it would be clearly wrong at this time to be giving ourselves a pay rise, particularly when there's public sector pay constraint, and nurses getting 1% pay rise, which is scandalous. In that context, people looking at us giving ourselves a pay rise would be incredibly insensitive and appalling. So I think really we've got to make sure that we send the right messages, that people appreciate that we are appreciating their suffering that they're having at the moment. So many people losing their jobs, so many people on the verge of losing jobs. And so in that context, I'm more than happy to go with the recommendation.
Councillor Loki.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you also for your service over the last 2 years. I've listened very carefully to the comments that have been made. I do need to remind members that last year the raised members of allowances was waved through, which I objected to at the time, but I accepted the decision. Clearly, there's very strong feelings about the circumstances that our citizens are facing. And I do think that increase last year, when we were aware of those circumstances, was a mistake. And I think we should put that mistake right. And with that in mind, I want to move an amendment to the recommendations to restore the members' basic allowance and SRAs to 2019 levels, with the SRAs being subject to the review in summer as intended. And I want to deal with this obviously as maturely as possible. It's not coming from any sort of political perspective. And I hope members will think carefully about that option under the circumstances. I hope there'll be another member of this council who would second that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Is there a second? Anybody seconding that? All right. Sorry, Councillor Lukic, there's nobody seconding, so we can't take that, can we? No. Okay. All right. If there's no more speakers. Oh, sorry, Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, it's thank you, Chair. Just an observation on what's been said, reference to increases in any form of income for councillors, which I've got. My opinion, for what it's worth, is that this role isn't a job. It's not a job. It's not a step on the ladder to something greater. To me, it's a vocational role. This is something that surely we do for our local community and our local area, and therefore, when we talk about we've got to be remunerated in a manner in which it is fitting almost, or that people can support themselves on it, to me sounds quite ludicrous. This is something we do. It's not really something that we do to advance ourselves for. So I think we've got to be very careful on what this role is, and we've got to be very mindful at this moment in time what we got involved in this role for, and moving forward, is it right that we even contemplate? It's almost embarrassing talking about potential pay increases at this moment in time, is my view. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Councillor Khan. Right.
Sorry about that. I was having technical issues. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support the recommendations in this report, and I agree with my colleagues who say this isn't the time to stand. This is the time to stand in solidarity with those who have lost their livelihoods or have a reduced income due to the impact of the pandemic. However, it's worth noting for future consideration that some of us work full-time with no access to a pension scheme. And if we measure the hours put in by some senior councillors, many of us are paid less than the minimum wage. And I agree entirely that being a councillor isn't and shouldn't be a career option. It is a calling and it is a privilege as well. But the role does bring financial challenges for those who are working age. I quit my daytime job when I took on the position of cabinet member 5 years ago. And if at that particular moment in time, had my children still been financially dependent on me, I wouldn't have been able to take on this responsibility. And some people may have been happy if I hadn't. So basically, it needs to be, it is a calling, but it needs to be something that people can do if they feel that they have that calling and that passion to commit their lives to creating a better area for their ward. And if we are going to strive towards having more representation, and as mentioned by Councillor Lawson, and if we do want younger people on the council of working age, then these matters need serious consideration. I mean, I think it's great if Councillor Lukic could afford to refuse a rise last year, and that's super for him. But we're not all in that same position. And I'd like to touch on something else, because I feel that the public perception is that we're on wages on par with directors and senior officers, and yet our allowances, they don't even match the wages of middle management. And Shabir mentioned abuse, and I honestly believe this false perception contributes towards some of the abuse we experience. But I'm happy to go with this recommendation given the circumstances we're in. However, instead of a pay rise, if we can just be kinder to each other, you know, I've noticed an incredible increase in the number of abusive phone calls. And whereas before, when we shared an office, it was kind of easy because you just told colleagues, or somebody's just rang me and said X, Y, Z. And this is making the job much harder because you're at home, you're isolated. You feel silly to ring somebody over that. It doesn't feel like a big issue when it happens, but it's an accumulative effect.
Councillor Khan, 30 seconds. Thank you.
Okay, that's all I was going to say, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks to you, first of all, for your years of service during such unprecedented times. I find it quite appalling, really, to hear somebody say that if you do something as a vocation, you shouldn't expect to be paid for it. Because, of course, nursing is a vocation, teaching is a vocation, caring for people is a vocation. Everything that falls under what we might call public service is probably a vocation, and lots of other things that I haven't thought of as well. And I think it's quite telling, really, to hear a Conservative politician say that those people who choose to live their lives in the service of others shouldn't expect to be able to put food on the table as a result of doing so. I think there's certainly, first let me say first of all that I support the recommendations, and I support what colleagues have said about being sensitive to the context in which we're working. And I think there's certainly a piece of work probably nationally to be done about the fact that allowances and pay for politicians seems to me to be quite piecemeal, that as roles have been created and as circumstances have changed, that's often just been kind of plugged in, and there hasn't been a systematic look across the piece at different levels of government and how those should be remunerated. But I do feel extremely strongly that, as toxic a debate as it is about politicians' expenses, it's one we absolutely have to have, because I couldn't be a councillor if it wasn't remunerated. And to be fair, I think that most of my colleagues that I've worked with of several different parties would find themselves in the same boat, or at least it would be more difficult for them. And it almost would be an irresponsible decision if you have a family, or particularly a young family, as Councillor Khan said, financial dependence. It would be an irresponsible decision to enter politics, but those are the voices that we really need to hear in this chamber and beyond, because when we make decisions, there are people who are affected disproportionately by those decisions, and they are the people who rely most on the services that the different levels of the state provide. And actually, if we aren't hearing those voices, then the decisions that we make will be very poor ones, and that affects us all. That reputational damage affects us all. That moral duty to make good decisions is something that we should all take very seriously. So I'm pleased that we're having this discussion tonight, and I'm pleased that people have pointed out the importance of the role of a councillor being one that working people are able to do, people from disadvantaged communities are able to do, people with families are able to do, because of course the policy that for members' allowances also includes things like adoption leave, carers leave, maternity, paternity leave. Those are all voices that we absolutely need in our politics, or else we won't get anywhere. And I think if you either don't or can't or won't understand that, then it isn't the people who need a councillor's allowance who should be prevented from holding political office, it's you. So, I apologise if that comes across a bit strongly, but I do feel very, very certain that the debate around politicians' expenses is one reason why a lot of us get all these abusive phone calls, isn't it? Because it's really easy to do these vox pop things of, oh, they're awarding themselves pay rises. No, what we're trying to do is make sure that everybody can be involved in politics, because that is the fundamental duty of anyone who believes in democracy. And I'm sorry, but I won't hear otherwise. And if you don't agree with that, then you need to scrutinise your own understanding. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Hill. Councillor Anthony Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be very brief. I'm just going to say, if you don't have an allowance, you won't get representative representation, as you're effectively restricting the role to only those that have both the time and the money to fulfil that. And I just remind those councillors who do have both the time and the money that they can at any point forego their allowance, as is stated in section 4 of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have no more speakers. Okay, right of reply, Councillor Simpson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think it's I was very much hoping that we'd all just be able to agree on the recommendations in the report on a cross-party basis. As I said, I think, and as some other members have said, I think it's important that this is out of the political sphere as much as possible, and that we don't play politics with it, because we end up in situations that I think are reflected in part of this conversation, which is disappointing. Comments of what's been said, right, we can't have a race to the bottom of political points score, and that's what caused, as it's been said, the expenses scandal, in that MPs were too afraid to award themselves a pay rise, so froze it, but found their remuneration by other means, and we all just end up worse off for it, particularly in terms of our democracy. I just have to say that if, as Councillor Smith has said, if you don't remunerate people so that we have people, anyone can afford to be a councillor, we're not going to have a representative democracy. If members are so reliant, totally on other income or wealth that they already have, or finding income from elsewhere, what does that mean for conflicts of interests in terms of a representative democracy and the decisions that are taken as a council? And the idea that that Councillor Thompson articulated that being a councillor should just be a hobby or just a vocation to people that can afford it. I don't think that's. I just simply disagree. So yeah, I'm disappointed that there's been a little bit of politics played with that this evening. So I just reiterate what Councillor Smith pointed out, in that any members who feel so strongly are able to reject any or all of their allowance if they wish to do so. But I would, move the recommendations, Chair, and thank you very much, everyone, for your contributions.
We have now moved to the vote. Our members, all members in favour of the recommendation. If any members wish to vote against the recommendation or abstain, please indicate in the chat box. Right, that is carried. So we move on to item 6. Council is asked to approve the 2021-2022 pay policy statement. Councillor Pando.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to ask the council to approve the annual pay policy statement be approved in accordance with the Localism Act 2011. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is that seconded?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that.
The recommendation has been moved and seconded. Are there any comments on that? No. Right of reply, Councillor Pando.
I'm okay, Mr.
Hang
Mayor.
on, one minute, Councillor Pando. Councillor Smith. Richard Smith. Councillor Richard Smith.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so the report before us is the annual report on Kirklees pay policy. It's worth noting that there is once again an increase in the number of senior posts. What also concerns me is that Labour have, at the same time as complaining, as they do, habitually, about how little money they have to spend, have decided to allocate another £500,000 in the budget for additional senior officers. Now, clearly Labour believe that these posts are needed to deliver all of their priorities, but I'm not convinced that Labour's priorities are the same as those of the general public. We've just had the Budget Council, where the Labour Party, the Green Party and others decided it was appropriate to put up council tax by 5% at a time when we're in the middle of a pandemic, with huge financial consequences for many people. The hardest hit are those who work in hospitality, those who run in small businesses that have not been able to operate, and retailers. These people are being asked to pay for these new rules through the 5% council tax increase. It is a duty of this administration to explain to these people exactly why these rules are necessary, because it is a council taxpayer who is picking up the bill. This is the last council meeting before the good people of Kirklees are asked to vote for their preferred candidates in all 23 wards. This is a time for the Kirklees Labour Party to be honest with people. Explain to them why you rejected Conservative proposals for better services for less money. Explain to them why you continue to blame the government for your own failings, and explain to them why you are spending their money on this. It is their right to know. If the people get a fair answer with a clear explanation of exactly why Kirklees needs to increase its headcount in this way, bringing in directors, what these roles will achieve, how it will improve people's lives, then fine. You will have made the case well, they will reward you with their vote. If, on the other hand, the people don't get a clear understanding of why this administration is putting up their council tax by 5%, and why they feel it is necessary to spend significant sums of money recruiting senior officers, then I suggest they vote Conservative in the local elections to make a real change to how Kirklees is run. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
There's no further comments, so right of reply, Councillor Pando.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'm to be honest, I'm pretty disappointed actually in Councillor Smith's comments. Councillor Smith actually has politicised something that I did not want to politicise. I understand that they might want to politicise members' allowances, but we're talking about pay policy for our staff. This is something that has been enshrined in law through one of the previous Secretary of States. For the last 10 years, we've actually had £200 million cut from our budget, Mr. Mayor. And now, Mr. Mayor, we are trying to put back in the stuff that we have part of our budget. How does Councillor Smith expect us to get this new line between Huddersfield and Sheffield? Transpennine is one of them, but this Penistone line, he knows that officers have been working their socks off. And when I say their socks off, they've been burning midnight oil. We have got very tight timescales, and suddenly he has asked me to support him along with other members, which I am doing with my deputy leader, the strategic directors, and the handful, or not even a handful, one or two strategic transport managers in developing a scheme in speed time so we can put a bid in by March. Now, if he wants us, see, I am really, really disappointed, right? He's politicising something that we are trying to actually get on the front foot with. We have taken out 1,000 staff from the organisation. The number of councillors that come to me and say, Shabir, we are getting our casework going through the roof, and the responses from officers is that they're trying to make ends meet. What we're trying to put capacity in. There is no point in having a council with 69 councillors and a massive investment programme, the biggest ever in the history of Kirklees, and then I hear people like Richard Smith coming here, right, and lecturing about how the taxpayer is actually being shortchanged. We are trying to put in the plan that we can deliver every year. Quite rightly, councillors challenge me to say that we have underspent on our capital programme, and the reason why that is because we just haven't got the staff. We have put in 2 new service directors. The personnel committee have recently approved that, and then to actually sit here and then try and go through a series of political point scoring on something that we're trying to do. How do you expect Councillor Smith to actually get the professional expertise to get the waste strategy that we are actually working towards into operation? How do you expect us to deliver the climate emergency, the millions of pounds that we are putting in there? How do you expect us to deliver the highways capital programme? How do you expect us to deliver the scheme that you are working with me on in terms of the line, Penistone line from Huddersfield to Sheffield? How do you expect us to deliver the Transpennine upgrade? How do you expect us to do what you keep on going on about in terms of the capital investment, yeah, on a shoestring? We just can't manage it. We have been cut to the bone. What we have done is manage this council in such a way that we've not done the same thing other authorities have done in terms of taking away services that matter so much, but we've kept it going through prudential management, through very careful financial administration, and through working with our officers. That's why we managed to do that. We've managed to flex our budget. We've managed to look at our resources in such a way that we don't have to be in the same situation like other neighbouring authorities where they're actually taking money out. Other neighbouring authorities are actually making cuts. We're actually putting money back in. The only way we can deliver that is to actually make sure we get the best people to do the job. I am really disappointed to say this, Richard, even for your standards, right? Yeah, I would expect us to better from you. Mr. Mayor, I rest my case and let's go for a vote.
Thank you. We now move to the vote by roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, you're voting to approve the pay policy statement. If you could indicate for, against or abstain. Councillor Pandor.
For.
Councillor David Hall.
Abstain.
Councillor Lawson.
For.
Councillor Cooper.
For.
Councillor Greaves.
For.
Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Akhtar.
For.
Councillor Allison.
For.
Councillor Armour.
Abstain.
Councillor Asif.
For.
Councillor Bellamy.
Abstain.
Councillor Bolt.
Abstain.
Councillor Burke.
Abstain.
Councillor Butt. Councillor Dadd.
For.
Councillor Paula Davis.
For.
Councillor Paul Davis.
For.
Councillor Eastwood.
For.
Councillor Donald Firth.
Abstain.
Councillor Eric Firth.
For.
Councillor Granger Mead.
Abstain.
Councillor Steve Hall.
For.
Councillor Holmes.
Abstain.
Councillor Hill.
For.
Councillor Homewood.
For.
Councillor Mumtaz Hussain.
For.
Councillor Yusra Hussain.
For.
Councillor Idale. Councillor Kaushik.
For.
Councillor Kendrick.
For.
Councillor Khan.
For.
Councillor Lees Hamilton.
Abstain.
Councillor Lee Richards.
For.
Councillor Lunat.
For.
Councillor Glow. Councillor Lukic.
For.
Councillor Lyons.
For.
Councillor Marchington.
For.
Councillor Mather.
For.
Councillor McBride.
For.
Councillor McGuinn.
Abstain.
Councillor Munro. Councillor O'Donovan.
For.
Councillor Patrick.
Abstain.
Councillor Patterson.
For.
Councillor Pervez. Councillor Amanda Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Andrew Pinnock.
For.
Councillor Kath Pinnock.
Oh dear.
Councillor Sarwar.
For.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Simpson.
For.
Councillor Smage.
Abstain.
Councillor Anthony Smith.
For.
Councillor Richard Smith.
Abstain.
Councillor Sokol,
For.
Councillor John Taylor,
Abstain.
Councillor Kath Taylor,
Abstain.
Councillor Thompson,
Abstain.
Councillor Turner,
For.
Councillor Ulla,
For.
Councillor Uppal,
For.
Councillor Walker,
For.
Councillor Warner,
For.
Councillor Watson,
Abstain.
Councillor White,
For.
Councillor Zaman.
For.
That's carried, Chair. Thank you.
Move on to item 7. A maximum of 60 minutes is allocated for a key discussion item. We will begin by receiving a presentation from Rachel Spencer-Hanshaw, Strategic Director for Corporate Strategy, Commission and Health, which will be followed by comments from the Cabinet Member, Councillor Turner. Before we open the debate to members' comments, can I ask Rachel to now give a presentation, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just going to share my screen now. Can everybody see that all right? Okay, so tonight I'm going to be talking to you about our technology strategy. And actually trying to highlight where the COVID pandemic has given us the opportunity to test some of that strategy out and help hopefully with some of the challenges that people have experienced. So we developed the vision and ambitions for the technology strategy through 2019, and this was done in partnership with our partners, with elected councillors and with our citizens. And what we came up with was a vision that reflected the sort of technology strategy we wanted for the district of Kirklees, both within the council, within the system, and also obviously externally facing. The 7 ambitions were very ambitious, but hopefully covered what everybody across the system felt was important, including residents themselves. So what I'm going to do tonight is just talk through some of the examples where we've been able to deliver some of this strategy through the past 12 months. So in terms of getting the basics right, I think we've obviously touched on some of this evening. Microsoft Teams is now something that I know that every single day I'm on a Microsoft Teams call. We connect over 3,500 people and partners across Kirklees every single day, which is a huge shift from the sorts of meetings and experiences that we were having before the COVID pandemic. We've also provided telephony services. So one of the local challenges for us was how we supported the national test and trace system and had something locally that residents could see was a local number, and that could potentially we could use our local knowledge to connect people into. So as a council, we've worked with our partners in Wakefield to set up that telephony service very quickly within a short space of time so that we were able to get that system up and running. In terms of our infrastructure, we've made some significant changes to our resilience. So obviously having a huge reliance on technology like we have at the moment, we needed to ensure that our system was fit for purpose. So we've made some long-term changes to the resilience in Huddersfield and Dewsbury. And what that means is twofold. If we have connection problems, if something goes wrong with the system in one of our 2 main centres, then we were able to use the other centre to support the infrastructure and hopefully prevent any big outages. It's also really powerful because it helps us to work with our partners to attract people into the district, to be able to work with partners to make it an attractive place to do business. We also very rapidly got the network services into the stadium to support the setup of the local vaccination centre. So that means that they could do that in administration from there extremely quickly. We've worked with a number of voluntary community sector groups to support their COVID response. So a number of the elected members in this room have worked with local anchor organisations throughout the pandemic, and we've deployed technology to them to ensure that we can help get support to our vulnerable citizens as quickly as we can. We've also worked on trying to ensure that the fibre network is improved across Kirklees by working with those suppliers, and that's obviously helped residents to be able to use technology in a more effective way and hopefully connect more people across our district. Obviously, technology in one sense there is an inclusive element that this is really important, and that covers a number of things: people's access to technology, people's skills in using technology, and also how we can create innovative ways to connect people in a society where meeting up and getting together is not something that we can do. So obviously, as elected members, you've all hopefully benefited from being supported with using technology, and we've obviously run a number of digital meetings over the past 12 months. And I think certainly the one-to-one support that we've been offering to people to try and help understand their unique circumstances is very reflective of our working with, not doing to, and trying to make sure that it's not a one-size-fits-all offer. We have a digital inclusion partnership that we've set up with our health colleagues and with our local third sector leaders. And we're looking at, again, how we can make sure that we're connecting people into technology in a way that is inclusive and that doesn't leave people behind. We have worked with our partners in education to deliver some of the Office 365 training, which has helped them get up to speed in terms of the making sure that their education offer is able to use that sort of technology that will make it easier to connect to students. I've mentioned the virtual council meetings. I particularly proud of the COVID web content. We have a really strong, trusted community who look at that page to get the latest up-to-date information, and we try to keep it as quick and responsive as possible when things change, as is inevitable in a pandemic situation. Setting up the technology to process requests for business grants, and obviously also to process those requests for support via our community anchors and local elected members for our vulnerable communities, the people that have been shielding for such a long period of time, and making sure that we're able to get people's requests in quickly and easily. We've also really concentrated on doing webinars as a way to connect into residents and to enable people to be able to talk to potentially experts in public health or other experts and get that connection in and that Q&A. And I think it hopefully has connected people in a way that we've never seen before. Now, clearly, this wouldn't be the ideal circumstance in which to test a strategy like this. But what it did do was take us from a draft strategy with a set of ambitions in January 2020 to something that we've been able to really push forward on some of those agendas that we probably never thought we ever would get to in such a short period of time. I definitely think that the partnership working has been absolutely key to this, and actually it is not just a strategy for Kirklees Council, it is a strategy for Kirklees, and it has enabled us to build those relationships with partners, certainly the voluntary community sector particularly, and to reflect our ambition from working with that sector and developing that sector going forward. I don't pretend that there hasn't been things that haven't gone as well, but I think certainly from my perspective, everybody has been keen to learn. They have tried their hardest to do everything that we can to help to move things on and to help to be able to deliver things in as much a normal way as possible, when clearly we're not in a normal circumstance. And I think it gives us a huge opportunity to build on this strategy to something that can be shaped and redeveloped to support us in the long term. And my hope is that we move into a situation where we take the good bits of using technology into something that will make us work in a more efficient way going forward. Thank you. I'm going to pass over to the portfolio holder, Councillor Graham Turner.
Thank you, Rachel. Councillor Turner.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Can I start by first thanking Rachel for the presentation and all the officers who have worked on not only preparing this presentation, but the IT strategy as a whole. And also those who have worked so hard over the last 12 months to make that strategy work. Again, not in an ideal situation, but there we go. And of course, those officers who are busy working behind the scenes, not only this evening to allow us to hold this meeting, but all our virtual meetings, they are the unseen force that makes it all work. I don't want to dwell on the presentation as I think it speaks for itself. You've all seen the facts and figures and the help and support that we've been able to offer across Kirklees, be it providing laptops for children or making sure our care homes have kit to enable residents to keep in touch with their loved ones. This report on the strategy was discussed by corporate scrutiny last week, who were fully supportive of the strategy. Mr. Mayor, who would have thought that virtually a year ago we'd all be sat here in the comfort of our own homes conducting the business of the council, rather than hunched together in the cramped council chamber? Some of you might be sat here in your tracky bottoms with dodgy, bad taste slippers on. We don't know, and it doesn't really matter because you're here taking part. It goes without saying that the last 12 months have been challenging for the whole world, and we have seen how fragile society can be, but we've also seen how resilient we can be, how we can come together and work differently and help those most in need to get through this pandemic. I think it's fair to say that we're in a much better place than previous generations in being able to deal with this pandemic, and that's due in huge part to the use of technology. We have all learnt new skills, some quicker than others, but we have all mastered enough skills to be able to carry on doing the work of the council and continue with our ward work. I have never seen the inside of so many bedrooms, kitchen and dining rooms over the last 12 months. I know who has cats, I know who has dogs, and those with small children who valiantly carry on with online meetings despite at times all these unwelcome distractions. Who knew that the most often used words would be, "Can you hear me?" Is that a new or an old and at number one in this week's chart, "You're on mute," but delivered in that very British way of a raised voice, which gets increasingly louder as the recipient fails to go off mute in a nanosecond, as if shouting somehow helps. Have we got everything right over the last year? Of course not. But I think we got more right than we got wrong. We didn't rush into online meetings, and I know some felt this, we were a little bit too slow off the mark in that. But the internet is awash with those that tried to do it too soon and simply provide us with a laugh as they found it didn't work. Being a fast follower was the right thing to do. In many ways, I think it's now what, as we hopefully start to get on the top of this terrible past year, just what do we do? How do we change? And I get for some, it will be, do we need to change? Well, I believe we need to change. If we don't take any learning from this, then all those sacrifices, lost time with our families, missed sporting events, missed births, missed trips to the cinema, pubs, restaurant, all the things we do for our entertainment and fun, all those sacrifices will be for naught. What does that change look like is a real question, I suppose. Sometimes as a species we can be slow to adapt and change, and yet at times we can change rapidly. Many of us are using a laptop that's had a camera on since they were invented, but we never used it. Instead, we used to drive to a meeting, then drive home, only to find that the travelling time was greater than the length of the meeting. What a waste of time, fuel, money, not to mention the damage we cause to the environment. But then when a crisis hits us, we can change quickly and react positively, and that's what we have done. Do we want to go back to that? I think not. I don't believe we should. Not only will the council work in a different way, but so will the private sector, the NHS, etc. All businesses and public bodies will have less people sat in offices every day of the week. There's going to be much less travelling. People's work-life balance will be changed for the better. And we're all acutely aware that our shopping habits have changed for good. There will be a balance to be struck between time in the office and time working from home, or working from spaces within the community, proper place-based working. We have an emerging access to service strategy, which is very much linked to our high street strategy, as it's no use having the best technology if it doesn't deliver for residents. A review of our corporate estate is ongoing to ensure that we have the right space in the right place for the way people will want to work in the future. We will
30
continue to move.
seconds.
Nearly finished. We will continue. You owe me, but you dropped me last time. We will continue to work much more with our partners. I've just seen huge benefits from closer working from them. All these changes made possible by the best use of technology. There is, however, a but, and in this case, it's how we make sure we leave no one behind. And I might make no apologies for my old hobby horse of the failure of all governments over recent years to fail to light up the country with a full fibre network that is affordable for all. It's no good handing out laptops and devices if people can't access a decent high-speed connection or if it's too expensive. We hear much about levelling up and investment in this and that, but a national programme and nationally wired, fully wired must be a priority, rather than the piecemeal system we currently have. The future is going to be even more technology-based than now. And we as a local authority have been doing all we can for years, working with partners to get more fibre connections across Kirklees. But Mr. Mayor, we can only do so much. A full fibre network is and will be increasingly important as the national grid is to our electricity supply. So we need to lobby our MPs and the government to push them on this. For me, it's one of the best ways to level up and will deliver a much faster return on investment.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. That's more than 30 seconds now. You're
all right, well,
way above.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And can I just personally thank you for the hard work and time you and the Lady Mayor have committed during your time as Mayor and Mayoress. Not been easy, but you've done us all proud. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Cooper.
I'll thank you, Mr. Mayor, from the beginning for your 2 years of service, which is a record. Not a record I'm sure you would have wanted, but it is a record nonetheless. And one of the things that really occurs to me about this technology strategy is the alternative universe. The alternative universe where the pandemic hit 20 years ago, without technology, without the technology that we have today, what would that world have looked like? How would we have coped in that scenario? Would we have coped? Would things have been so much worse? And I think they really would have been. This meeting would be impossible. Speaking to all sorts of people would be impossible. A lot of the connections that we have which keep us sane would not be possible. And working in the way that we have would not have been possible. And the pandemic would have been so much worse. So one of the small mercies out of what's occurred over the last year is that technology has helped keep things going, and a particular thanks to the staff who've been working behind the scenes to make that happen. Some of the learning that we get from this, I think, is looking at the council's estates. We've got to look at that balance. What's that balance between people physically being in office buildings and not? And part of that balance is actually thinking about things like staff resilience, staff welfare. What has been the impact on staff of working with technology from their own homes for such a long period of time? And I think before we make any big decisions about closing buildings, I'd be really interested to know if Civic Centre 1 has much of a future. But is to actually look at what is actually possible for people to do and what is acceptable for people to do in the longer term. And I think certainly I think that a lot of council meetings may well continue to happen even long after the pandemic is gone. I think many of them may well be done in this very way. So yes, we've got to look at the council's estate, but we've got to look at this in a holistic way, not just in terms of cost savings. So that's, I think, important. I note the help with laptops for schools, which has been very, very positive. Some people may remember from a previous meeting that we used a small amount of our ward budget to pay for laptops, because head teachers in the Newsham ward came to us about year 1 and year 2 pupils because they were not being helped under either government schemes or council schemes. Now, I was berated by Councillor Patterson for claiming credit for something that I'd done, and that which was quite entertaining. But I was told that Kirklees Council was already providing laptops for year 1 and 1 to 2 pupils, and I should not have done this and shouldn't have provided it. last week I went back to head teachers and asked them again about provision for year 1 and year 2 pupils in terms of laptops, and they told me again that they were not aware and not being informed about schemes that were available from the council. So the council has, and there were shortages. So the council's got a bit of a job to do in terms of matching its provision to what's needed for year 1 and 2 pupils, and also getting the information to the head teachers. I'm not making this up. It is what they are saying to me. And so if you've got a problem or an issue, then you need to take it up with those head teachers. Not me.
Thank you. Councillor John Lawson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Rachel, for the presentation, and to the officers for pulling together the valuable information that we've got here. It's good for council to have been briefed, and I believe it went to corporate scrutiny last week or something very similar, a version of this. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend that meeting, and it doesn't seem to be available in the quagmire that is our website. But I am grateful for the opportunity to listen to it firsthand. There's some excellent work been going on. That said, it is a briefing, and opposition parties have had very little input in choosing the subject. We've been presented with a list of technological responses to COVID, but it's after the fact. We're being asked by the administration to debate what has passed, with no opportunity to shape what might be needed in the future. If we are not careful, we are going to find ourselves in a space where we will look as though we were being self-congratulatory and slapping ourselves on the back. That's not right. It's a mistake. It misses out on the wealth of experience and the knowledge from the opposition parties. What this council needs now, is more than ever, is a wider debate on the issues of the day. We've had a government budget passed with no discussion, none, which for this council is just extraordinary. Women's safety and domestic violence needs to be discussed as a matter of urgency by this council, where all members can feed in the views of those who elected them. Economic recovery and poverty are issues that are knocking on our door, but we're doing the political equivalent of whistling and looking at the dust on the skirting board. We need to be able to put forward motions again to shape council through democratic process, to challenge and to provide alternatives. If we don't, the public will soon ask, quite rightly, what is the point of view? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Khan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The use of technology in adult social care it's been central to our transformational programme, and the pandemic has meant adapting at scale and pace to support people through this time. I just want to share with colleagues a brief outline of the areas of work involving technology and providing a couple of examples where we have invested to save and improve service delivery. We've invested in assistive technology to help people stay independent in their own homes for as long as possible. Our front door transformation has allowed us to assist individuals sooner with the provision of assisted technology and to keep people independent from of more formal services. This, alongside enhancing the provision of occupational therapy at the front door, has meant a better and more timely experience for residents and cost savings for the council. And we have a fantastic online self-assessment tool for equipment alterations and technology. It provides advice and helps people to source simple pieces of equipment to continue to live independently. And we've also got an offer online self-assessment for finances, and this allows service users, carers or family members to complete the assessment at a time and place most convenient for them, whilst freeing up staff to focus on more complex cases. We're developing a secure online self-service care account, which will allow service users and carers to access, update and manage care information 24/7, giving people more control and independence and flexibilities. And this programme is funded by the NHS Digital and managed by the LGA. Now, prior to taking my position on Cabinet, I used to manage services for vulnerable adults who often needed care and support packages, and I can visualize how much easier my job as a partner agency would have been if we had had these digital solutions back then. And I've got a huge massive list of other things where digital usage and technology has been really helpful in making services more seamless and assisting people. So I'm just going to pick out a couple of my favorite things. I mean, some of the feedback we got from service users during the pandemic when reviews and mental health tribunals became online was that service users sometimes felt that they were more comfortable doing it online because they weren't faced, with a whole group of professionals in a room in a more formal setting, and that they were able to verbalize more of their perspective on things and have a greater input into that, which I think is really important. And I think we got some positive feedback from family carers about virtual solutions, when we used phones and videos to provide support, and in the right circumstances that worked better for them than face-to-face visits, whereas they would have had to make an appointment and had to actually go there, meet somebody face-to-face. So they found that a lot more, some of them in the right circumstances found that a lot more convenient. And our adult social care staff, they were working mobile and agile prior to the pandemic, and so it's not new ways of working for them. It's just that we scaled this up during the pandemic. And adult social care staff, it's really important for them to talk to each other, and they've had regular virtual coffee mornings and things to share experiences and get support from each other as well. We also successfully bid for a national Google Home device, and we provided IT services and devices to other care and support providers to support them through the pandemic and help them facilitate communications between residents and families. And I'm quite happy to send more information now because there's lots and lots of more examples I can give here. And I think that Kirklees is well on its way to achieving national recognition as being the best adult social care department in the country. We know that technology alone won't solve all the challenges facing social care.
Time's up. Thank you.
Can I just say, finally, can I thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your 2 years of excellent service.
Thank you. Councillor Mather. Bad connection, right. Councillor Michael Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a real fan of technology, and connectivity, and it's good to see that to get the feedback, and I think that's very encouraging. I think it's fair to say that everything that has happened over the last 12 months has been quite surprising in many respects. Certainly, if I look at the sector in which I work, we're doing things now that we would never have even contemplated 12 months ago, and I think I have to be fair and own up and say that I actually didn't know what Zoom was this time last year. I hadn't used it. So it's really good that whilst the circumstances are not great, but it's really good to see that the council is now adapting and thinking ahead and so forth. And what I would say really is the challenge is to, what we've seen tonight has been very much need driven. We've had to do these things just to get on and carry on our business, and it's good the way the council has been flexible and has reacted to that. But I think the real challenge is to look forward and see how we can now push the boundaries, how we can use technology in an imaginative, innovative way, and perhaps actually be leaders in this field. And it'd be fantastic if Kirklees Council could really be seen as a sort of a model of excellence, driving forward the use of technology, which has to be, when we look at the diverse area that we live in, the geographical area that we cover, then greater connectivity has to be absolutely a priority for us. And I think there's so much more that we can achieve by using technology. But what I would say is I think we must not lose touch with the human component in this. And connectivity means a lot of things to different people. For example, for some people, connectivity is the bus. that comes once or twice a week and takes them shopping wherever they go or whatever. And also connectivity is the ability to actually just communicate human to human. And I mentioned this in the context of the fact that over the last week, I've had a number of calls from residents, some of them quite exasperated, elderly residents, simply because they've not been able to get through to the council on the phone. That they tell me stories of hanging on the phone, listening to music for ages. And therefore, I think we just have to be a little bit careful that we don't lose sight of that human component in this discussion. And that for some people, the ability to pick up the phone and actually connect with a human being at the council is all they have, and it's very important to them.
Thank you for that. Councillor Mark Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Rachel for the presentation. Just want to pick up on a couple of points reference to technology. As far as connectivity and working with National Rail, I mean, we've actually been doing that nationwide for the last 140 years, so it's not unusual for us to use connectivity at the side of railway lines, etc. But there are a couple of things that technology would help us to do. Well, one is, and I feel like I'm repeating myself time and time again, reference to this junk that we get on a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. We say that we're leading the way on technology, but still, and then we have a climate catastrophe or whatever you want to class it as, but still we continue reams and reams of paper every single week, every single month. And the other thing as far as technology is concerned is we've got to be very careful about what we wish for, because we did have a councillor portal when I first started 3 years ago that many thousands of pounds were spent on there. And the conclusion to the problems and the bug fixes of that particular technology was to stick it in a cupboard and employ 6 further staff to take phone calls and do it that way. So, we have got to have a little bit of forethought in technology, decide what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, who's going to be responsible for it, and who's got to take it forward, even through the bug fixes, so that we don't end up with the same travesty that we did with the councillor portal. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Leslie Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I briefly want to say, as a bit of a Luddite, I am a little apprehensive about this wonderful information and presentation we've had. Whilst I accept it's been fantastic for the pandemic, and obviously it's enabled lots of time saving, etc., for meetings, I would be very concerned if we were to decide that the way forward is mainly online, because as human beings, I believe we are primarily sociable people, and part of what all of us need is face-to-face contact. So I just want to put my penny within that, whilst I would accept that possibly some more will have to be face-to-face, and the other one is a plea. I'm surrounded where I live by many elderly people who still don't have the internet and are desperate to be able to get a bus into town, go to the Civic, see someone. And I don't think anything will ever take the place of that, no matter how good the digital developments are. Thank you.
Councillor Peter McBride. Councillor McBride.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just amazed at how the council has been able to carry on. If we look back a year, who would have thought the range of council services could be continued more or less as normal, despite the fact that half its buildings were closed, or most of its buildings were closed? It's incredible, the adaptability of local government, its ability to come to terms with new realities, to embrace new technology, to use the latent skills within the system to adapt and to apply and to meet the needs of the population. This was true during 2 world wars. It's been true in this diabolical situation that we've faced. And it's interesting to see when the government took charge of matters which were caused by the pandemic, we've had a complete mess. We've had Dido Harding spending £36 billion to what is really no effect, a huge waste. When the same functions are carried forward by local government, they are completed and effected. The rollout of the drug has been undertaken by the NHS together with local authorities, providing the services which enabled the drug to be administered. I think we do not appreciate not merely the ability of local government, but its adaptability, its willingness to embrace and ability to embrace whatever new technology may come along. And I think that's very important for us to learn.
Thank you. Councillor Shabir Pando.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's been a good discussion so far from most contributors. Just building on what Councillor Watson said, I think I agree with him, and I think for me he's hit the key issue, the human component. And I think Andrew said some good. Andrew Hugo made some suggestions regarding, don't just make sure you understand what you're doing before you actually jump into it quickly. One thing we do appreciate and realise that the way IT has helped us in the last 12 months, there was no plan. There was no plan for the pandemic was going to come, and there was no plan to say that this is how we will reorganise our deck chairs, or this is how we'll completely transform services, this is how we will transform the organisation. I think, to be fair, right, yeah, this has been a partnership with central government and local government, putting projects on one side. I want to keep the focus on how we make sure that we move the council forward, because I'm sure after the election, this will be a key area that both LGA in partnership with central government and local authorities will work and look at. And I think there are lessons to be learned. But what I also want to focus on is the human element that Michael talked about. Because one of the things I've realised is, while I've been at home, I've had that human interaction with my kids. Not just sort of like dashing around, texting, saying, where are you, how are you doing, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. I've spent a lot more time with my daughter, who's been doing her A-levels, most of the part working from home and doing lessons online. Although it's good that she's actually back in school, which is the right thing to do. But how that online education was panning out. And again, I think the key thing, what Michael talked about, that human component, that human impact. I generally mean I would rather be in the council chamber talking to you guys and girls, having the face-to-face debate, seeing the whites in your eyes. But because of the pandemic, yeah, we are where we are. So there's a lot of work that we've done. There's a lot of learning to do, but at the same time, there's a lot of positives we can get out of this moving forward. So let's just keep focus on in terms of what good they can come out of this, and hopefully post-May will be a better council, better set of councillors, and that human element will probably be something that will get out of the recovery. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, thank you, Councillor Pando. Councillor Smage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your 2 years, and thank you for coming to our ward in that time frame. I just wanted to pick up on something that's been said about human contact. There's been an awful lot of work by a lot of people to get the digital world that we live in currently up and running, and so that we're able to hold these meetings. And I too didn't know about Zoom before this was happening, so but when we're talking about future strategy, and it'd be interesting to see what that future strategy is in detail, can we consider, I think as has been said, that we don't exacerbate digital inequalities, because there are people who cannot, for whatever reason, use digital or are wary of it. And so we need to ensure that as a council and partners going forward, that access is available for everyone, irrespective of whether they can access digital or not. And so while this is good strides forward in what has happened and what needed to happen in such a short space of time, we do need to make sure that going forward we don't create more division by people not being able to access through digital. Thank you.
No more speakers. Councillor Lukic.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep it very brief. I'm a huge proponent of technology myself. Well, I'm just about old enough to remember life before the internet was in nearly every home. Couple of points to raise. I think we can all appreciate how much the pandemic has, I guess, encouraged a shift towards greater use of technology, but also maybe we can reflect on whether it was necessary for a pandemic to come about for that to happen, and whether the administration hopefully will going forward look to greater use of technology in terms of driving productivity and efficiencies in the way the council works. That being said, I appreciate the comments from Councillor Warner, Councillor Smage about the human contact and inequalities, because I've certainly had over the last year, I've certainly had incidences of constituents who were excluded, for example, from applying for business support because of it being an online only route. And obviously not every business owner necessarily is necessarily uses technology that much themselves, depends on the nature of their business. I also want to highlight the cybersecurity side of things, because that's kind of what my occupation specialises in. There have been examples of local authorities around the country, a few local authorities around the country over the last year who've come into great difficulties when basically, because as we rely more on technology, there's greater potential for malicious actors to interfere with that and basically cripple the council's ability to serve its citizens. And that is a huge, obviously, financial risk to the council and in many other risks as well. And as far as I can tell, we take that very seriously here, and hopefully it continues, and we do keep a close eye on that, and we all individually do as councillors as well, because any of us could potentially unleash something into our systems.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the meeting. There's no more speakers. So once again, I would like to thank you all for your contribution. And as I said before, this was my last meeting. So hope to see you on the other side. So thank you very much. Good night and look after yourselves.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Good night, everybody.